So on the way here, I saw some grandparents with like probably grandchildren. I mean, that's how it looked to me. I'm making up a story, who knows? But anyway, they look like grandparents and grandchildren waiting at a stoplight to cross the street. And then as, when I looked in my rearview mirror, the little kids were running ahead to cross the street and the grandparents were behind. And it just, it's one of those funny things where it just broke my heart. I just was like, tears just came up, and it's just this thought of how the world has changed so much in people's lifetimes. And sometimes, I just can imagine how hard it is for, you know, generations, the generational difference, like the worries that grandparents must have for their grandchildren now. I think they've always had worries, don't get me wrong, but it's just it's amazing to think about the depth of feelings that are present all the time. When you think about the billions of people, and they all have their worries and their, whatever's, and it's if we remind ourselves to keep our hearts full, um, it's so much easier to have compassion and to have, genuine affection for not just the words and just so that's the kind of thing. Like in the mornings when I start my prayers, I always try to generate that kind of feeling, where you really it just hits you, that uh, life's hard. We have moments of not just moments. We have all these things. We have joy. We have sorrow. We have fear. We have worries. We have just on and on and on it goes. And we're all feeling the same way, and we're all wishing that we could find the spot that where we feel safe and content and not worried and all that stuff. And we're all the same that way. So there's just really one huge family. So, but it's always good to start our prayers from that kind of place. Because if our big motivation is that we want to work on our minds, our hearts, in order to be able to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings, we have to have affection for all sentient beings. It's, so we need to connect with that humanity or just sentience. So take a moment to think about why you showed up today. Based on that reason, generate an intention to use this time well. And what does that mean? Really, it's curiosity, then you want to listen well. You want to listen with an open mind. Curiosity. You're trying to let go of habits of mind that you realize aren't skillful. And we have to have an honesty when we listen to the teaching about ourselves, kindness, honesty. And it's good to try to generate some confidence of our ability to do this. They have an incredible capacity for learning. So bring to mind some people that you naturally feel affection for, that's easy for you to have affection for. And wish them well. Wish them happiness. Wish them to be free of suffering. Wish them to have the causes of happiness and to be free of the causes of suffering. And then just enlarge that circle of concern. People you know, or loved ones of your loved ones. Just keep expanding that circle out. And let's recite the four immeasurables. Sorry, I couldn't see the screen on my. It was hidden by several layers. So really keeping in mind, real sentient being. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And the Refuge and Bodhicitta prayer on page 98. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Thanks, Nana. Okay. Anybody know where their mind is today? Is it present with you? Is it here with your body? Is it somewhere else? Is it in the past or the future? So this developing this habit of self-awareness, of just knowing, just noticing and feeling present with your life from moment to moment. Is a kind of a skill we have to develop. It's the skill that helps us recognize when we're uncomfortable or have fears arising or any negative state of mind arising. so that we can pause before we act or speak. It's also the state of mind of, this self-awareness is also the skill that we need for recognizing when we feel okay, when we feel confident, when we feel generous, when we feel kindness, all the other things that we can offer the world, So it's not just about noticing when we might lose control, although that's a really good thing to notice. It's also about being able to see a more balanced picture of ourselves. And when we first start to look, what do we usually find? Those of you who've ever bothered to look. I'll drink some water now while I patiently wait.
Craziness.
Craziness rings a bell. Yeah, because when we look, what do you find in your mind?
Usually daydreaming.
You're daydreaming, all right?
I said negative.
Negative things.
Crap.
Lots of that. Yep.
Same thing.
Jumps around.
It jumps around. Kind of chaotic. Unless it's single pointedly focused on like anger. Or whatever it's single pointedly focused on, it's usually just, careening around, towards things. But we really want to understand that that's not the whole picture. And so we just look for 1 minute a day, all you getting a glimpse in to is yourself 1 minute a day. I mean, that's not much help. So it's really a process of noticing. And, like I always say, this, we usually can find a spot in our bodies that is a clue to how we're feeling. For me, I get this little tension right here. It's just the slightest little, it's like literally a physical hook. Ooh, that's my, so when you start to notice, you will start to notice more and more subtle signs, which is really good because that gives you more space. Because the more subtle it is, the easier it is to control. The easier it is for you to be able to really pause and go, what's going on here? And why do we, I mean, I don't want to emphasize the word control so much because that's kind of we don't want to suppress our feelings or the states of mind. We don't want, just try to pretend that they don't exist or shove them in some, dusty corner somewhere. It's that we want to deal with them. So, and we want to deal with them in a way that is coherent with our values, not just a reaction. So, Retta, was it you that came up with what responsibility? I love that.
I was watching it was Mel Robbins,
Okay.
a podcast with her, I think Jay Shetty, and that's when she mentioned it.
So responsibility is the ability to respond. Isn't that nice? Nice little turn of phrase. Okay. Well, we want the ability to respond in a way that fits us, that isn't just a reaction to some uncomfortable feeling in our bodies or some, annoyance, whatever. I mean, it's just, we just want to be able to go, okay. We want to be curious about our responses because then we can unpack them and see, what habit they're reflecting. Maybe a habit of, indignation, maybe a habit of annoyance or a habit of fear, fear of not being liked, fear of not knowing what to do, fear of uncertainty in general. So but the faster we become, and how do I put that? The more attentive we are to how, okay, where am I in this picture? How am I feeling right now? The more we can give ourselves the opportunity to really choose responses as opposed to just react, and then look back with regret. My personal favorite habit. So we really want to be in tune to that because it gives us a whole lot of freedom of choice. So that's what we need to recognize about spending time with our mind, to noticing, okay, what's going on? I mean, heart and mind are the same word in Buddhism. So we're not distinguishing between what we call in the West, emotions and intellect. It's all mind, and some we feel it more in, the body, but, even scientists can't find the mind, they can't find consciousness in the body. So it's just, we want to get familiar with the way we think, the way we react, so that we can choose. That's it. It's not this about putting those old War movies with the spotlight and interrogation on the suspected, spies or whatever. You can see what kind of upbringing I had. But that it's not this harsh, cold light that we're trying to bring to our inner world. It's really more of that picking up the crying baby kind of light. We want to be, oh, how when you're left in charge of a baby, those of you who don't have children, you might share the panic that I have when someone hands me a baby. And I go, oh, really? Yeah. I'm sure I feel safe to them. Yeah. Okay. And those of you who have had children or take care of nieces and nephews and all that kind of thing, that feeling of when they're crying, like, somebody sucking the life right out of them, what is it? What is it? Please let me help. Let me figure this out. Let me help. That's what we want to do with our minds. We want to, go, oh, I'm not so comfortable, and we want to kind of pick up the crying baby, and just be curious and hold it and help it feel safe. We want to be honest with ourselves and loving with ourselves and kind to ourselves, warm-hearted, all of which might be new habits for you. So, it can, you might have to do some effort. When I used to have panic attacks, and when I first started having them, I thought I'm having a heart attack. So being the, whatever, I went to the doctor, got a heart monitor to see if I was having heart attacks, because that was my biggest fear. Yeah. So I wasn't having heart attacks. So then I had to deal with panic to go, oh, you're just panicking. Okay. So that was good news. So the longest time, what did I do? I start to feel that panic and I just have to stop and just go, okay, you're freaking out. And I just have to tell myself, okay, don't worry. I'm not going to do anything that makes it worse. And if it mean, so if it's in the middle of a conversation, I might cease talking, and just, which is really unusual for me, as you can imagine. But, it was just this, okay, I need to talk myself down from this because that's doable. if you have some skills to do it. But it's this, but it was this kind of, okay. But I had to be really kind to myself, because as soon as I wasn't kind to myself, it would increase the panic. As soon as if I got angry with myself, just, if that, and if you've never had a panic attack, it's that terrible way to feel. So, it's its own motivation in a way. You don't want to keep feeling like that. But the point is, before you could actually actively change the, the reaction, first you have to kindly hold that space. Just be aware. Oh, okay, I'm afraid. And you have to be accepting. Accepting doesn't mean that you're saying, oh, I don't mind if I'm like this for the rest of my life. Doesn't mean that. It just means, oh, this is what's arising. Resistance does not help. Hatred does not help. Disappointment does not help. Just being able to go, there I am. Here is panicking trend. This is before I was a nun. But, it's this. So bringing all those pieces together can be very difficult to do for many of us. But and so when we look, the fact that we find all these sort of like what we would label negative or stupid or whatever our favorite phrase is, that's not helpful. So we need to just do it with curiosity. Oh, isn't that interesting? I'm feeling fear right now, or I'm feeling miffed. I'm feeling, annoyed. We just don't have to act on it. Just because in curiosity, the mind of curiosity is kind of conducive to pausing and not acting. If you just curious, it's not like, maybe because it's sort of a state of learning. It's not a state of doing so much, it's just, oh, that's interesting, and it doesn't demand a response. So it can be a good habit to develop, just a curiosity about yourself. And then when you go to the self-loathing voice that so many of us have, it's really important to just go, no, I don't need that right now. Thank you for sharing, but I'm not listening, whatever you need to get it to quiet down, or just not listen. Yeah, whatever. And go back to curiosity. Because we really do need to, what does this help us with? When we recognize all these different flavors of ourselves through the day, what can that help us with?
Awareness, so we can, make choices.
So we can make choices. And what does it also do for our inner relationships?
Helps us to. What was that question?
Inner relationship.
I knew somebody was going to say that.
Relationship.
Interaction, shall I say? Okay, yeah, not interrelation. I realized as soon as I said it, oh, this would be interesting. Okay. But
I
Steve,
can
what were you
share
going to say?
something.
It helps
I
us
can
Yeah,
to
well,
share
okay, just a
something.
second.
Yeah,
Actions.
Okay, go ahead from home.
this is Sherry.
Hi,
So I was
Sherry.
thinking it's helpful for me to feel like I have more control over my environment, because there's nothing worse than reacting and feeling out of control.
So it's really not of your environment. Feeling control of yourself within whatever's happening. Yeah. Yeah, because that's something that can reduce our fear.
And shame. And
Well,
shame.
yeah. One of our other personal favorites, right? So, yeah, and it's being able to, the more we can learn to pause, the more we can allow ourselves to not judge that state that has arisen. Because it's, first of all, not necessary. It's arisen.
Also, if you feel inside all these different things, it lets you know that it's constantly changed. So if I'm feeling sad, and I might be in 5 minutes feeling okay.
Yeah.
Feeling better. So nothing is, written in stone.
No, in fact, it can't be written in stone. It's an impossible way to exist. So yes, so it's always shifting. So it's really important to notice, oh, I'm not feeling it now. It's past, So unless we do what? How does it not pass?
Keep assessing.
Obsessing.
Feeding it.
Attached.
Yeah.
One thing that I found helpful is instead of saying I'm depressed or I'm sad, I say I feel sad. And it creates a little bit of distance and it helps me process.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just thinking like, oh, fear has arisen. Anger has arisen. Impatience has arisen, If you find impatience has arisen, you can avoid that anger. If you catch it at the impatient state, maybe. Depends on the day.
And one of the things I struggle with lately is irritation arises, and very quickly. And then when I try to look for the reason,
There is
no reason at all.
Hey, welcome to the world.
It's like, you'll ask me for something and there's no reason to be irritated.
But that's sort of samsara. The all pervasiveness of the dissatisfaction in samsara, is that we have this, feeling of dissatisfaction all the time. Partly because it's dissatisfying all the time. But mostly it's because there's some expectation all the time. Whether it's not to be bothered. Did you have something, Anne? Did you have something you wanted to say?
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about like giving yourself, for reacting. Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes I react.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm like whining in that voice and I get stuck.
Right in that place. Yeah. And that's the kindness element. We really need to understand that we're learning, which means what? Most of the time, we don't do it. It's a learning process, And so one thing that we can think when we do react and we're kind of, first of all, it's really good news that you regret it. I mean, that's a habit. A lot of our habits, we don't really regret until like we get punished for it or something, So the fact that we kind of go, wish I hadn't said that, is a good sign that we're developing that motivation that wants to change that habit. Okay. However, holding on to, we should be able to get it right from now on is unrealistic. That's having an expectation of yourself that's impossible. We can't do that.
Is it?
Yeah.
Then what's the point?
What's the point is because with practice, we can get there. We can have a new habit. But you can't change habits. It's literally like a tsunami coming at you. I mean, that's what our habits are. They're like these, uncontrollable wave coming at us. And we're having to put a force back against it. Well, guess what? Not only the pause is stopping that tsunami. Oh, that's hard enough. To change the habit, you have to overcome the tsunami. It takes practice, lots and lots of practice. In fact, it's really just enough practice to where often whatever it was that causes that reaction doesn't come up anymore. You know,
Can
it's,
get there.
yeah, that's what I said. You can't, but you can't do it, you know, and as long as you're not a Buddha, you can't expect perfection because you have seeds that can ripen, meet certain conditions that you just didn't plan for, or whatever. You can lose it. Even bodhisattvas can lose it. Yeah.
I just find like I don't have the wisdom to recognize it. I do, I do it, but if I don't just utter sasha, just regret practice and okay, I don't know what happened here. Let's do it.
Right.
Let's do it. If you can't figure out why you
Or even the fact that you did it. If you immediately go into sort of self-harm with your mind, of beating yourself up, it's, this is why to me, purification is self-love. It's saying, oh, I made a mistake. I regret it. I really want to try hard not to do it again. And I'm working on it. It's that, it's that treatment of saying, I'm not perfect. Whoop-de-doo. No big deal. If we demand not even just perfection of ourselves, if we demand that, hey, I was just thinking about this an hour ago and here I am doing it again. I mean, that's what we do. I mean, don't we? I mean, I'm not the only one who sits there going, okay, patience. I can be sitting there, chanting Om Mani Padme Hum in my car, and then somebody does something and I go, I think, oh yeah, that works. Yeah, I mean, it takes time, but the more we can go, oh, I don't want to react that way. That just gives us a direction to head towards, but expecting a rival, isn't going to happen. So, and beating ourselves up is a reaction that we also don't want to develop. It's practicing a mind we're trying to let go of. So it's, it's okay to go, to give yourself a mental hug when you start to go that direction. Relax. I'm not a Buddha. Say your Vajrasattva, whatever, works for you. Start saying mantras, but expectations are really it's like the electric shock pad or something, it's just doomed to make you suffer, because they don't generally work out. Yes.
I really like that image of the tsunami
Mhm.
because that's an uncontrollable force of nature,
Right.
as is being in samsara. So as long as we're in this world, we will constantly be hit with frustration and irritation. But the other image I go to is people save themselves from the tsunami by going to higher land. So every time something's coming at us and we use our tools and we go to higher land, we can, but inevitably there's going to be a certain number of those tsunamis. We're not going to find higher land.
Yeah.
I like that image.
Yep. It's just, and really that's the force we're up against. If you can allow your mind to consider what the Buddha is saying, that we've existed since beginningless time. We've been practicing these habits for a very long time. They're very strong, and some of them reinforced by our brain has developed this capacity of noting danger. So it's reinforced by what the limbic system, or some technical term that, at the moment I can't recall, but that we just have this fight or flight, kind of thing. And, if you're like me, the fight is in the mouth, so I say a lot of things I regret. But it's just, it's understanding that noticing that I don't want to do that, is the starting point. Oh, look at me, I've done it again. And becoming friendly with yourself, of being able to really kind of chuckle about going, oh, There I am again. Can help, you know. And don't forget to do it when your reaction's kind, you know, and generous. Because that's you too. Yeah.
Along the lines of forgiveness, what I just thought about is, I think we have an expectation when we use the word forgiveness, and it's like to wipe the slate clean. I don't think that's really possible, and I think instead we should use the word acceptance or find acceptance somehow.
Well, I
But-
think forgiveness, self-forgiveness is about acceptance. You know, they're kind of the same thing. It's this kind of like, oh, oops, you know, and I'm not perfect, not a Buddha, I'm not this, you know, I'm wounded, all sorts of things. Yeah, I mean, exactly.
And also for other people, like, I want to forgive a certain person, I'm just gonna accept that that's how they are, that's what they did. And
It's best to just go with that's what they did,
right, judge actions, not
not
person.
people.
Yeah.
And we need to do that with ourselves too. You know, remember that, okay, so we said something, you know, unkind or angry or whatever, judgmental, you know, and but I am not that. I can keep telling myself I'm that and stay stuck, or I can give myself permission that it's possible I can change. And today I didn't catch myself in time, you know, and just be kind. And you really do sometimes have to use the image of you talking to a good friend. Yeah, I mean, it's so important. If you have good friends and you would react to them differently, if you would kind of go, it's okay, dear. You know, we all lose it from time to time, or many times in one day. You know, you want to talk to yourself like your own best friend. You know, we need to develop that skill, really being okay. And we won't be perfect at it, you know? So but that forgiveness, like you said, we can't erase our past. And I was so disappointed when I accepted that about purification. I still have to live with what I did. It just means I don't have to judge myself as being that, you know? That's the thing about impermanence and selflessness and all that stuff. You can't point to a you that's static. You're stuck this way, you know, not in your good moments or your bad moments. You know, we're just a collection of moments, and some moments are prettier than others. Yeah.
So, how would you develop that skill of being, more kind to yourself?
I think it's about when you start to go to the judgment, you need to pause, you know, and go, okay, I'm not going to make this worse by now criticizing myself. I've just been reactive to someone else. I'm not going to layer on top of that a reaction to myself. You know, you'll have to find your own language. I always liked Thich Nhat Hanh's image of picking up the crying baby, you know, that right, you know, and because in that moment you're screaming at yourself, you know. And so what do we do with you know, we hug them, you know, like kids who are acting out, the best, you know, if they're hitting others, you know, the best thing to do is to try to hug them so they can't hit anybody else, you know. We have to do that with ourselves, you know, and it just takes practice. And it says, and remember the people who love you. You know, if you can't in that moment love yourself, remember there are people who do, you know, and use that support system in your mind, you know. What would you tell your best friend? You know? So it's a practice. So it's something that takes a while. It's not something that just, but I tell you, it eventually gets easier, you know. So so that's a nice aspect of it. But it explains a lot of how we treat others, the way we treat ourselves, you know. It's So that's one of the valuable insights we can have. Is if I trash myself, why am I surprised if I trash somebody else? Why do I think I'm worse than everybody else? And sometimes I have to go to some really, the Buddha said I can become a Buddha. I mean, I have to go, okay, are you really going to abandon the Buddha's teachings by saying you can't do it? I have to have these little talks. So what can I tell you? It's, I mean, we're worth it. And changing habits that are harmful to ourselves and others is worth it. I don't care how silly it sounds in your head. Whatever you need, try to give yourself that support so that you can abandon this kind of harming of ourselves. We're worth it. The world is worth it. Everybody, this is the thing, is that, the more we practice kindness to whomever, the more kind we become. So it's really important. And if you need if you need a pep talk, you call someone who will give you one. You don't call the person that will say, God, haven't you grown up yet? You don't, that's not helpful. So it's about, this is the beautiful thing about how interconnected we are and interdependent we are. It's the reality that we're dependent on others. So make good use of it. They're a resource.
The more kind we are to other people, the more kindness we'll receive.
Well, that's a theory. Yeah. It depends on our karma, of course.
Yes.
But it's a condition for people to treat us well.
Yeah.
But it not necessarily work out that way. Because everybody's karma is ripening. So, it's that expectation that I'm doing everything right. So surely people will treat me. I have an example of that right here. Okay, so Lama Yeshe was reflecting on his, past. And he said from 9 to 24, he was at Sarajay Monastery in Tibet. And he took many teachings and received many commentaries from excellent teachers. He was well looked after by his uncle, so he was never hungry or thirsty, and he took care of him in general. It was a typical monastic life. Experiences, and it was really good. And from my side, I tried my best to study and practice Dharma. But still, in 1959, the Chinese kicked us out. Not exactly, but they did not allow people to practice Dharma. So this is an example. We can't control what's gonna, what's gonna ripen for us. Just because we're creating conditions that you think like, oh, this is a good condition, yes, it is a good condition, and it will serve you well. But an expectation that means nobody should harm me is not getting the picture. So he escaped to India. So he says, so in that painful situation of uncertainty, I had to look deeply into myself to see if all those teachings I had taken would allow me to cope with my new reality. I found that they helped a great deal, and that gave me the confidence I needed to deal with the changing environment in which we found ourselves. So, he says, this is why Dharma practitioners welcome trouble. I guess I'm not a Dharma practitioner. But anyway, it really does give you a chance. This is the positive side of tough stuff, is recognizing, oh, I can handle it. I have learned something from the Dharma. I have, da 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 da. So
So everything that happens to us is a chance to further enlightenment.
Yeah. Every moment is an opportunity to get closer to enlightenment.
So they're renovating the apartment above my head and they start at about 8:30 in the morning, but I can't say anything because, that's okay. Last night, about 10 o'clock, I don't know, moving furniture, whatever, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to practice what I've been learning and I'm not gonna go up there. And at 11 o'clock, I can't get to sleep. So I went up there, knock on the door. They don't come to the door. Knock on the door. They don't come to the door. I go downstairs and it's quiet. I said, okay, that worked. It was quiet for a while.
Okay, get to the point.
The point is, I don't know, what is the point? I'm talking to myself and I'm trying to tell myself it's not gonna work. What you're trying, the way you're trying to get them to be quiet, and I can't get them to be quiet, but they're infringing on my ability to sleep.
Oh,
And they shouldn't be working at midnight.
oh, horrors.
So, anyway, I'm telling myself all this story.
And is
going
it
from
helping?
One side to the next, like I was.
Yeah, this is how we have to work with it.
I had the right to
Oh,
tell them to be quiet, but I can't control them.
yeah. So yeah, you have the right, but you can't determine the response. They have the right to go, ha, the hell with you. Life's not
I'm really
fair.
trying to work on impatience and anger, but that.
You have to think about karma. Why is this happening to you?
I did ask myself that. I don't remember making a noise like that, preventing.
Have you ever talked really unpleasantly to someone?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, then you created unpleasant noise. I mean, we have, you might not find anything in this life that matches perfectly the karma that's ripening for you at that moment. But trust me, I was thinking about this the other day because I mean, every condo around me has been renovated in the last 2 years. I didn't, I had the joy of not having neighbors for a long time, which I sort of didn't realize. It was just, they were quiet. I was quiet. Hey, it's all good. But no, they new owners came in and they did the whole renovation, and I have one guy who's doing it, I think a lot of it himself. So that means on weekends too, the girl comes out, and I don't like the dentist either, but it's just, it's this acceptance that we really can't control what's ripening. What we can control is our response to it. That doesn't mean there aren't times we don't, like during the day, go say, I'm really having trouble at night when you continue working. And I think we have a noise that says that we should stop noise at such and such a time. So could you try to follow that? Maybe you forgot. Maybe they're new. Maybe they're whatever. But you give them the benefit of the doubt. But you also can't, unless you you have to choose how you want to respond. Now, thinking they're selfish, inconsiderate SOBs, what does that do for you?
Only makes anger.
Justifies the way you feel.
And I was trying to think.
And you know nothing about them except that they're moving furniture in the middle of the night.
Whatever they.
I have a neighbor that always would, I don't know where they traveled from, but whenever they got back from a trip, they'd always get there around about, 11 p.m. And so all the dragging of their luggage over the catwalk, which makes a lovely sound. They go in, and then they unpack everything and da-da-da, and then you hear the car doors closing while they get another load and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm right outside the elevator. So I hear every elevator that goes up and down, So what do? You say, I'm sorry, can't you plan your trips around me, my sleep schedule? It's really rude of you, Yeah. There's no welcome back in my mind. People are going to do things that infringe on our space. And you do things that infringe on others' space. And we don't recognize it when we do it. You know, I think back when I was young and all the things that you know, like, how could I stand myself? You know, you noticed how young people have no volume control and that, you know, it's like, oh my goodness, it's just shocking to me. And what do they have to talk about anyway? Oh my goodness. You know, it's you know, so we have to really, it is hard to practice the Dharma. It is hard to work with our minds and just say, okay, that's what's happening. You know, does that give me permission to wake up in the morning and go kill them? No. Would you want to be that kind of person? No. And that's one of the other things you can practice. Oh, if I did this to others, may I remember not to do that in the future because it's not being considerate, you know, just because it's late, you know. It's like sometimes I can't sleep and I'll get up and then immediately, you know, like I'll knock over a lamp or something. You know, that makes that noise. And you just know you've woken up everybody in the building, you know, and I know I'd get mad if I did that. If I heard that, you know, it's like, oh, things happen. Schedules happen. But it doesn't mean you can't have a, you know, ask them, you know. But we have to be careful about our expectations and our just, you know, all the things you said. I have a right. Well, does that view, is it helping you?
I can't answer because I feel like they're inconsiderate.
And is that helping you? What is that feeding?
It feeds the anger.
Yeah, so is that helping you?
No.
No. This is one of the things we have to recognize. When we can't control other people, what we can control is our minds. And if we want to keep feeding that anger, go right ahead. Just make yourself feel worse and worse and worse and worse. Feel free. It's your choice. You have a right to that.
The first thing I thought of this morning is, what am I gonna say to them when they come back on Monday to work? Because I do want to address it.
Yeah, you can address it, but you can't expect that it's going to work out the way you want it to. That's the deal in life. Because it's samsara. It's the nature of suffering. We don't get what we want. And guess what? That doesn't mean we can't be happy. Now, we can't be happy if we keep thinking until I get what I want. I refuse to be happy. You know, which is often what we're doing to ourselves. I'll show them. What is it? It said anger is drinking the poison and hoping the other person will die.
Yeah.
You know? Oh, I'm sorry, Jean. I could, Ellen, you. I'd forgotten your name. Jim, thank you, Jim.
You say, you know, you don't want to create more karma, but a nice way of thinking about that is everybody, what you're going through, somebody else has gone through something worse than what you went through. Actually, I go through something worse than that. I have neighbors. He's an older guy. He gets up at like 5:30, starts working out. He had a stroke and I hear him right above my head. So whatever you're going through, there's other people going through things that are worse. And the spiritual way of looking at it is, okay, that's the way, like you said, samsara. And you don't want to create more negativity or karma.
And more of the habit of mind that thinks that you have to get it your way.
Positive attitude.
Yeah. And it's that kind of thing of like, so like for you, if you know someone had a stroke and so they're doing this to help them, they're worse off than you.
That's also true.
Yeah. Guess what, folks? You're not the person that life is the hardest for. You know? Yes, Jean had her.
So I'm remembering a story about the Dalai Lama. So inevitably reporters ask asinine questions.
Yeah, of course.
They said to the Dalai Lama, so you never get angry, Dalai Lama? The Dalai Lama keeps his equanimity, and that's the point of this story. And he said, of course I get angry, but it washes over me and passes. So I'm thinking about the Brahma Viharas. Am I saying it correctly?
I don't know. I don't care either.
You know what?
I don't know and I don't care. I think
Okay.
that's correct,
All right.
but I'm not a language person.
Okay, but you know, the elements of being compassion and sympathetic joy, and I forget.
It's the four
third,
immeasurables.
I think of the one at the top, if you make it a hierarchy, is equanimity, because it's those practices that kind of we're talking about here now. And I put those kind of like, I put them under rubrics just because that's my mind.
Yeah, that's the 4 measurables that we say every Sunday first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that will lead to us having equanimity. And an interesting thing is, I was reading, I forget what book is, it might be our book on, that we do on Thursday, that there's a possibility that when you're in pain, okay, because we're talking about physical and emotional,
Yeah.
emotional and interaction, but physical pain is the one that is the real test. And so I read that there's these monks that can put a distance between themselves and the pain,
Yeah, that's what
and
you,
it becomes, and I actually tried it once. And I don't know that I could do it again, but for like a little bit of time, it worked. I
yay.
don't know if it's disembodying yourself.
No, it's really about, again, understanding that we are not our bodies. We are not even our state of minds, all the different state of minds. These are just moments. And we can choose to focus on the painful moments, like the pain in the body, or we can choose to say, my body's sending me signals, that, something's wrong. Well, you can either respond in fear to that, which sometimes is appropriate, or you can go, okay, that's what's arising, and not add suffering to the suffering, where you just have, you create space. I think a lot of people who have chronic pain, who learn to cope with it, are doing that also. They're creating space in their mind to recognize that just because this alarm system is ringing, sometimes very fiercely, doesn't mean that I have to just drown in it. That we are separate. Our thoughts and everything are, your mind doesn't feel pain. Your body feels the pain. Okay, so that's a physical sensation of pain. But you don't have to have the mental response of pain. I don't know if I'm making any sense at all, but
Well, just having read that, that allowed me to consider it. And it did happen for like
yeah, it
a
works.
little bit.
Yep.
But
It's the
only-
same thing as when, if you're dealing with anger, if you take that moment to pause, to look at, is this the response I want to have? It's like pain. Like if the pain's not your body's alarm system, something's wrong. So sometimes when you hear that alarm, you need to go get it checked out. You need to find out what's wrong. Sometimes when you have that alarm, there's my arthritis, and nothing to worry about, no big deal, and so you can ignore it. It's a way of learning how to not be reactive and choose your response. It's really hard with physical pain. And it's especially if we haven't had much in our lives until we're older or something, or, until we get an illness or something. And so we're completely not used to it. Athletes develop a certain tolerance because they put their bodies in harm's way all the time. So so the signal goes off a lot, and they learn to just plow through it, which is not always wisdom, but, so we really have this incredible capacity. It's like, I don't know what it was like for you when you got hurt and you trying to intervene with Joey and his, uncooperative playmate. And so he was hurt, the dog was hurt, and you were hurt. And all you could do was you drove the dog to the emergency room instead of yourself to the emergency room. So there's, when we do things like that, that's a sign that we have the capacity to set our normal reaction to our physical state aside, because we've got our focus on something else, So we have this ability.
I think pain and suffering are two different areas. You're talking about pain, suffering. So when we're in the chronic pain state, we're adding
Mental suffering.
mentally to it.
Yep.
And
But you also have the physical
We're so-
component.
absolutely so attached to our physical state that if you've ever been in that situation, and I have, where you're in so much pain, you can't do anything about it. It's not easy because we're so attached to our bodies.
Well, we're afraid, but also we want it to end. We want that pain to end. It's not necessarily.
Sometimes we can't control it.
Of
So
course not.
therefore, you have to separate, so you don't want to add on the suffering to the pain.
And we have to
make
do-
things worse.
We have to do that with everything,
Absolutely. But
not just physical pain.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's my point, is that physical pain is just one circumstance that we apply this ability. We need to be applying it all the time to all our disturbing emotions. Because our disturbing emotions lead us to suffering. So pausing when one has arisen to go, okay, I can either be reactive to this, like when physical pain arises, we can go, I need to go to the emergency room. I need to find out what's going on. This is new. This is, I have to figure this out. Am I having a heart attack? Kind of thing. So we need to do the same with, the other signals we have that we're disturbed, because that's why we call them disturbing emotions. We want to notice it as soon as it arises. The more we can attune ourselves to that so-called pain, that alarm system that says, oh, I'm not comfortable. I'm afraid. I'm, whatever. Yes.
As a say study or achievement. So are we meant to be pacifist? Everything is where I'm coming from. You understand that I completely not wired way, and kind of pain and all of this stuff. It's been something where it's conditioned that you accept it, you acknowledge it. Are you in pain or are you hurt? You're in pain, okay, fine. Continue.
Right.
So and the same thing when it comes to like threats.
Okay, I wouldn't say passive is probably not the right word. What you want to be able to do is be active with your response.
Okay.
Where you choose, you don't just react, which is just, whatever habit you have, and you just reacting to it through whatever your conditioning's been, You want to have that ability to recognize that you have an opportunity to choose how you respond. So whatever it is, somebody's threatening you, you can choose how best to respond to this, and how do, we bring all our values into it, not just, the immediate, we want.
Fight or flight.
Yeah.
Fight or flight, our
trigger, yeah.
Our response to that is, if you feel fear goes straight to anger, and straight to anger goes to action.
Or withdrawal, the other direction.
If necessary.
Well, no, for some people, that's their.
Yeah, that's not
That's their
that's not in our
flight.
program. That withdrawal is not within our program.
You're a program.
Right.
It's in mine.
Right.
I get paralyzed by fear.
Okay. That's alien.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that in your face, but yeah. So yeah, but that's why it's called fight or flight. Yeah.
Okay, so we're just remaining conscious of it not to be that wiring, and you want to stop
I'm
that.
choosing of how you respond. We have conditioning, and then we go, I don't think that's working out for me. Now it might in a war zone, but in general, in the reaction that we're conditioned to, or that we practice for so long that it's innate, we want to be able to see that we can, if we work with our minds are very quick. I mean, if you tried to meditate, that, right? So we actually, if we keep working on going to the inner world and developing some discipline with that, we'll find that space between stimulus and reaction. There's space in between. And we want to use that space for choice. So we don't just, because of course, just react, uncontrollably react, and then regret, so it's just, it's about And then we want to be able to recognize we have choice on what responses we feel get us in the direction we want to go, you know? So, you know, it's like when you learn martial arts and they concentrate an awful lot on, you know, what you really want to do is never to have to fight back, you know? But that's, you know, that's the last resort, not the first thing you do. Yeah, it's that kind of thing. So we want to, you know, understand that our uncontrolled reactions can just lead us to feeling like, am I ever going to get this? You know, I keep every year I say, oh, this year I'm going to do better than this. And we don't, you know, and so it's because we're not recognizing that opportunity when it arrives, because it's fine to say, I mean, we can practice on our cushion. We can practice when we're sitting quietly at the kitchen table or we're reading a good, you know, inspiring book, you know. But in the thick of it, you know, if we don't also pause, we're missing our opportunity to practice. So, yeah.
I think that for some people, they only see black and white. It's either I react or I do nothing. If I do nothing, I'm a pushover and they're just walking all
Yep,
over me.
yep.
I think there needs to be more gray, I think.
And so we have to work with that in ourselves.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to mention, you had said you were joyful when you didn't have any neighbors for a while. And then,
No, I didn't realize that I had the joy of quiet. I didn't realize it because I had no neighbors.
and so there's a shirt that I saw. It's too peoply outside.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes it just I want to keep to myself, but then you had mentioned that some monks welcome trouble. And it's like, do I put myself in the public where I can practice this, or do I stay at home where I know that I'll be peaceful?
Yeah. Yep. Yep, that's the deal. You know, it's like we have to stretch ourselves sometimes, and then we have to recoup. And then we have to be honest with ourselves when we go, I could have stretched myself a little further. And we put ourselves out there. And then, you know, it's a balancing act that is constantly changing. You were never going to find, you know, this, oh, when this happens, I can do this. And when this happens, I can do that. Because it's going to depend. Context is everything. The other people involved is everything, you know, you have to be flexible and you have to be clear in your own mind of how you would like to act. What is the priority for you? You know, is it kindness? It's getting what you want? Is it, you know, proving your point? Is it being right? You know, you have to look at these things. This is why that inner awareness of noticing that just little bit of discomfort, so you can ask yourself, where am I? What's going on here? Because often it'll be like, I'm right and they're wrong. And I want them to know it, you know, and behave accordingly. But, you know, we have to, you know, really, because then we can choose. Then we can kind of like laugh, you know, going, oh, well, that's a little bit much. You know, it's like me when I, you know, get in the car and think that, oh, all the traffic should part, you know, and I get there. You know, it's ridiculous. But it's amazing how often we treat people like that. I'm sorry, you're not doing what I want you to do. You know, go away.
It's so difficult to be tolerant and patient.
And that's what it is,
Yeah.
tolerance and patience, you know? And patience, so patience is accepting the suffering that arises in your mind and not retaliating. It is not, oh, I can deal with this, no problem. No, it's that you're suffering and you're just dealing with it.
You say it again, patience is
Patience is accepting the suffering that's arising in your mind without
Retaliate.
the wish to retaliate. Yeah. When I got to that I did a, you know, a month-long meditation on the Lam Rim, you know, I got to that part and I thought, yeah, I really hate that definition. You know, and it took me 3 days to get past that one piece of just kind of accepting that that's what it is. Because, you just want to be patient. That's how my mind works. I don't want to have to get there. I don't want to have to accept suffering that's arising. I just want to not suffer and just be there, and that's not happening in samsara, you know. When you practice with these things enough, you suffer less. I suffer so much less than I used to, but I haven't eliminated suffering.
So I think for me right now, one of the hardest emotions is grief.
Yeah.
Because it's the Queen Elizabeth, who knew she was a Zen master, said that love is the price we pay.
Yep.
Grief is the price we pay for love.
Yeah.
So grief being loss, loss of a loved one,
Yeah.
whether it could be a pet.
Yeah, I get
or,
that. Yeah.
Or God forbid, child, parent, or
your
but
partner.
then there's other layers of it like we're experiencing now. Because I think we're at an existential crisis on our planet.
Okay, but that's a different kind of grief. That's a loss of a view.
Loss of
A view.
you.
Yes. So like we also get attached to our view, And so if our country, if we talk about politics and if the country's following pretty much our point of view, and then it changes and it's no longer really following our point of view, we have a loss of our view being the one that's predominant. Okay. So we have to kind of tease out the different layers to that, because one is just the loss of not getting your way. Really, I mean, it's just that simple thing of going, wait a minute here, why would people vote for that guy? Just kind of thing. It's, my point of view is the better one. They should have voted for the person I voted for. There's a layer of that in there. Then there's this layer of, that change is going to happen because of this shift, just like every shift in politics. I mean, there's a change that comes across. And so there's a loss of doing things, the way you expect them to happen. And then there are all these layers, and there's layers of who might be harmed by these changes, and your loss, and some of that is the fear for yourself. Like I can't deny that since this is the year I plan on signing up for Social Security, that the thought that Social Security may be, hit the scrap heap is kind of a worry for me. Kind of like trying not to really get upset about that, but because I have to just deal with it if that's what happens. It doesn't mean I don't do anything. Doesn't mean I don't join my, put my voice out there with others who you say don't mess with my Social Security. So, but so there are all these layers, that we need to, and recognize when it's really fear. It's not grief, it's fear. When it's not grief, it's anger. When it's, we want to look at all those layers. But the truth is, one of the big layers is we think, we grasp after improvement. We think, oh, the world, we're finally on the right track. And then maybe now we're not, And so that's actually attachment to a view, So it's hard. And so that's when, like for me, because I didn't agree with the outcome of this election, that's my who cares, but it's this understanding that it was won by popular vote, and I have to accept that. It's not like it was just the electoral college or something, that's the way it is. And so I need to understand that means a lot of people felt a change was necessary. I can disagree with that, but it doesn't mean that, I have to throw out their humanity because, oh, well, they're just wrong. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I wasn't listening to something, so it's really about trying to understand that we all created the cause for the results of that election. Everybody who's a citizen in this country created the cause for the outcome of every election. That's how it works. That's how karma works. you know? So being able to take some responsibility for, like I know for myself, after things like the Clean Air and Clean Water Act was what, the 70s? Reagan did those, right? I got fairly apathetic about being an activist for pollution. So my apathy is part of that. Part of this, probably part of this cause for EPA being thrown out the window. So, we have to look at these things and not just act like, we're mourning the loss of this, nations, politics, country, all that changes constantly. I've never been able to keep up the map of Africa, all the different countries and Eastern Europe, is that right? I have no clue.
How do you, you said to be a voice is one thing that you can do. So it's not like you're a pushover, but how do you, in doing that, not continue to, I guess you have to do it in a skillful way, but how do you learn to be skillful when most people see it as you're just part of the problem, or like you're adding to the fight by being a voice, but you're really trying not to?
Well, I mean, you don't do it from anger. You don't do it from anger or hatred or I'm better than you or whatever. You do it because you think it's the right thing to do. That your view is more in line with what would be best. But you don't hold, we need to be able to understand that we're all people. If we want the country to be better, who do we want it to be better for? Everyone. So we need to hear each other, and hear the different needs of different groups and be able to, and we still speak up for change and we still, say, I don't think that's a good idea, blah, blah, blah. But if you do it out of love for your country, love for the people who live here, love for whatever, however you want to put people treating each other well, it's a different energy, As soon as we cross to, I mean, what was I hearing the other day? Someone used the word that anger was initializing, is that right? Initiatory. Anyway, kind of gets you started, like, oh, that's wrong. But it isn't sustaining, and there's no wisdom. It's just oh, the alarm has gone off, I'm fearful, blah, blah, blah. What we need to do is come back to that feeling of, I don't think this is right. And we need to, put our voice out there and have our choice. And that's what's great about our country is that it's, that it's founded on disagreement and coming up with a compromise. It is not easy.
I fear that when I'm being a voice that I'll be attacked.
Okay.
You
You have to live with that.
Okay. It's part of the,
Well, it's part of the fact that we can't control other people.
yeah.
We have to decide, that, okay, like some people die for their causes, so I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying that people do that. I mean, it's just, but it's, people get arrested for their voice. You missed a great era. But, but I remember, like Lama Yeshe, they were around with the hippies. That's, because they met them all coming through India, drug, sex, and rock and roll. I don't even remember the way it goes. That he, but, it was, they were coming from this place of, love, Now, granted, it was kind of drug induced, but it was, it was a starting point, but it's just curiosity, lots of curiosity.
Searching.
Yeah, searching, and like
It helped get the ball rolling.
yeah, so so it was also initiatory or whatever. But it's just like, and what Lama Yeshe would say is that, but you don't need the drugs. You can do this with your mind. You don't, that will pass when the drugs pass. If you develop a new habit of mind, it won't pass. just like we have trouble changing our current habits. When we create new habits that are in the direction we want them to be, they are also very hard to change. So, yeah.
There's in here, there was a question asked, I forget, I don't know who's saying this, but do you advocate the use of drugs as a spiritual path? And the answer is no, but he does say that for some people, their minds are so closed that it might be helpful for such people to look at reality with a different vision from their usual limited one. This might open them up to further possibilities. But once the expansion has been experienced, continued use of drugs has the tendency to further ingrain delusions. But I thought that was interesting. And I know that there's some other spiritual practices that cactus.
Oh, I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's just why psychedelics have come back. Is the same idea that, well, what was it? It was Bill W., right? Alcoholics Anonymous founder thingy. He did it. He used one of those drugs, and then they found that with addiction therapy, that people who feel that sense of oneness, if you have a good experience, apparently, it really helps them, because that's what they're seeking through their addiction, is that they feel separate from, and they're trying to belong, and of course it backfires, as addictions do. But it's just, so it's very interesting. But the point is, to me, is that, it's all about training the mind to be open, so it's and it is interesting that that's currently being looked at again as a treatment, whatever you call it, medium. No, I'm just trying to, like mode of treatment.
I don't recommend it.
Hmm?
I don't recommend
I
it.
don't recommend it either, but that's just me and that's just you. And, Gabor Mate thinks it's great for PTSD. So, what do you think? But, I mean, but there is something about being able to relax our sense of separateness that really helps us. This idea that there's me over here and you over there does not work. It is not an effective strategy to feel like you belong and that you are, it's entirely the setup for this self-grasping. I need to get what I want, take care of myself, take care of all those that belong to me, all that tight grip we have on the self, and be able to, when you can loosen that and realize, we're all part of the same group, and how I act affects all of you, how you act affects everybody else too. I mean, it's just like this trying to hold ourselves over here, like, oh, I'm worried about being threatened, blah, 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 nothing unintelligent about it. It's just that then you have to weigh things, about, like, I know for me, when I was a teenager, it's like, the thought of getting arrested, my father would have hit the roof, and so, and he, that was like, he'll kill me. Don't get in trouble that way, but it's just, so we all have to, we have to kind of go, oh, is that a good reason? So I so appreciated Jane Fonda going, well, I realized that, so what if I'm 85? I can still protest and get arrested, that's a skill she has. So, it's just, I think sometimes it's probably very useful. I mean, because trauma is a very, it's a complicated response. But, sometimes we're just looking for the quick fix. We just like to find something that makes us feel like, okay, I can handle this, and that's just another craving. So, and we don't want to feed our cravings, just like we don't want to feed our anger. We don't want to feed our worry. We don't, it's, but we do want to feed our kindness, our generosity, our patience, our loving kindness, our compassion, all that stuff. So, Boy, I feel like we've gone around the world and back.
Some people are talking about listening to people with the opposing point of view.
Yep.
It's surprising how often you find common ground.
There cannot help but be common ground. We all want to be happy. We all don't want to suffer. We all don't know what we're doing. We're gonna find common ground. I mean, this is the thing, you know? So it's yes, it's hard to, when we're so attached to our view, it's really hard to listen. Oh, that's the phrase I wanted to mention today. Help me remember for next week. Is selfless listening. You know, when you listen to really hear what's being said, you know, you just take yourself out of it. You don't think about your response. You're trying to understand what's being said. You want to make sure, and that's what you want to do when you read Dharma books. You want to read them to try to understand them, not this constant going, I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. You know, you don't have to agree. It's just that first you have to listen. Before you can come to the conclusion that you don't agree, first you have to listen. You know, and that's the only way to leave the space for new solutions to arise, different ones, things that we haven't thought of before that might meet more people's needs, you know? So but we're all into it for the quick fix, and that's a problem. You know, so I mean, I'd love a quick fix. And apparently Buddha says, you know, it's liberation and enlightenment. And, you know, so there we go. Okay. We need to say prayers. Time. All righty. So yeah.
And it's really tough sometimes being a human being.
Yep.
Could be worse.
Know how much I appreciate your style of teaching the Dharma, because it's really helping me grow as a human being.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's how it helps me too.
Thank you.
You know?
Thank
Okay. That's
Bravo.
bravo. Okay. So yeah, probably. Anyway, so take your motivation at the beginning, you know, that, and this wish we have, we really most, you know, we show up here because we have this strong wish to kind of figure it out, and how, you know, the world can be kinder, so that, and I can be kinder, and all those things. And that's a wonderful quality that we have. You know, that's our Buddha potential pocket, and it's wonderful. So we want to rejoice in that just even one moment that we're inclined that way is wonderful, and worth rejoicing over. And then during this time that we've spent together, there are all kinds of beings that have been helping other beings, you know, and we want to rejoice that that's what's been happening out there in the world while we're in here, you know. And you know, that's a wonderful thing, you know, that we can count on that. And it's happened in the past, and it's going to happen in the future. That's a guarantee, 100%. So that's a wonderful thing. We don't want to forget that, you know. And now we just want to be generous with the positive potentials we're creating, with the wish that it can be beneficial to others. And of course, we can't actually give our merit away. But when we become conditions, that means that we'll have more moments of kindness and generosity and all that. That helps others directly, you know. So it's just a la 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 land of daydreaming. It's more than that. All right, this page 246. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, attain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid of a little, with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain, to dispel the miseries of the world. And then on page 244. Long life for His Holiness. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Shinrei, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain till our ends. And then page 234, is that right?
Yes.
For the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Travagas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the meaning of precious centuries, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great ways of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam and glory for fortune's disciple.